And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Franklin. I'm one of the two co-founders of NorCal SCI, which stands for the Northern California Spinal Cord Injury Foundation. Welcome to today's presentation of our series of Cooking with ARASH. Beat the summer heat with some tasty hot weather dishes that ARASH is going to be demonstrating for you. As usual, everyone has been muted in order to eliminate any background distractions. We will have a Q&A session, and we might actually have it throughout the presentation. It's been working well the last few times we've done this. So I ask you to just send any questions that you have for Arash using the chat field in your Zoom screen, and I will post those questions to him. We are also recording this presentation as we do with all of them, and everyone that has registered for tonight's presentation will receive an email with a link to the video recording of tonight's presentation. It'll be in your inboxes first thing tomorrow morning. And one last thing, these presentations are now being made possible thanks to our generous donors who continue to support our organization and our program. So we're grateful to them that allow us to bring programs like this to you. And we're also grateful to Arash, who takes the time out of his busy schedule running around with two little toddlers. And so we're grateful that he is able to do this. So let me go ahead and introduce him and we can get the program started. So Arash experienced his C5 and C6 incomplete spinal cord injury in 2012 as a result of a fall. He has given numerous talks and shared his story of perseverance, recovery, and challenging limits to audiences large and small, including a TEDx talk. He's a Bay Area native living in Walnut Creek, and he credits his California upbringing for his love of the outdoors, nature, and cooking, activities he still cherishes as he continues to travel, explore, and enjoy new experiences. He's married with a daughter and a son, and also he is a member of NorCal SCI's board of directors. And as my voice is for some reason beginning to give out, let me introduce Arash. All right, Arash, it's all yours.
I'm unmuted. Okay. Thank you, Franklin, as always, for the kind intro. The last couple sessions have been with Shelly, so I'm not used to this. I kind of miss doing everything with Shelly. It's been fun kind of sharing the nutrition and the cooking as we go, but that's okay. We're back on. I'm ready. I've got an ambitious program as always. Let's get the party started. Today we are talking about hot weather dishes, hot weather cooking. So I don't know about you guys, where I am, it's 96 degrees outside. And certain foods are just more fitting for hot weather than others. Generally, when it's hot out, you don't want as much kind of hearty, heavy, stews and, heavy things like that. So we are going to make a bunch of really great lighter things, things that are very much in season. If you all know, we've been talking a lot about seasonality. I always talk about seasonality in my cooking because it's something I always integrate. So using what's out there and what's fresh and in season right now is always a big part of my cooking. And I know Shelly's big on that as well. And that's the way the food tastes the best, is when you are making what is actually in season. So right now it is the middle of summer. What's in season, guys? If anyone has been to a farmer's market, or if you have a garden, or you have friends who are growing stuff, it's really good stuff. Stuff I really love: tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, zucchini, that kind of stuff, herbs, basil, all that stuff is in season right now. So we are going to use a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of common ingredients you'll see. So I have an ambitious agenda of trying to make 4 things for you, and let's get going. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've actually gotten it started already. The first dish I'm going to work on is actually, I've got it going already, but it needs a few more minutes. So I have eggplants. I have whole eggplants. All I did was just put them on a baking tray, whole, stuck them in the oven, and I'm going to make a traditional Iranian dish called mirza ghasemi. It's a wonderful, wonderful dish. And you're wondering, it's actually the only cooked thing I'm making today. Everything else is not cooked. sticking with the hot weather theme. And the reason it fits really well with summer and hot weather cooking is that the ingredients are in season. It's eggplant, which is a summer ingredient. But also I like this dish because it's really easy to make. Everyone I've ever made it for really loves it, even if they are not the most adventurous eaters. And you can eat it hot, you can eat it cold, you can eat it room temperature. Traditionally, you eat it with bread. You could use it as a dip for like crackers or something. You could eat it with rice, but it's a great, great dish. So while I am waiting for the eggplants to finish cooking, and again, all I did was just stick them into the oven on a baking sheet at the max heat. I didn't cut them. I didn't do anything to them. I just stuck them in. What's happening is that keeping the skin on and not cutting it, the eggplant's kind of steaming in there. And what I want to do is I want to soften the eggplant. I think a lot of people sometimes have a bad association with eggplant. And I think that's because a lot of eggplant is, people use a lot of oil. It can be greasy, it can be heavy. The taste is not always amplified, but in the Middle East, I think they use eggplant really, really well. And this is a great way of doing that. So we're just softening up those eggplants. You're going to see, traditionally I would make it with 2 really big round eggplants. But when I was at the market the other day, they didn't have big eggplants. They had small ones. So I'm using 4 little ones. Excuse me. So those are in the oven. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to jump to the second dish, which is a really fun dish called Gazpacho. This is a dish that originates in Spain. It's a cold soup. If you guys have had it before, I hope you enjoyed it. I think it's really tasty. It's super, super easy to make, and there's 100 different variations. So as I always say, please don't worry too much about the specific recipe. If you Google Gazpacho, you will find literally 10,000 recipes. Some that say put cucumber, some that say put watermelon, some that say, whatever. I'm making a little bit more of a traditional style like you would get in like southern Spain. And on a really hot day, a cold soup that's really light is super, super refreshing. Best way to start the meal. So that's what we're going to start with. The one I'm making is with tomatoes and cucumber and bell pepper, fresh garlic, and we're literally just going to throw a bunch of stuff in and put it in the blender, and that's it. That is the soup. That's all you have to do. So I'm going to enlist my lovely camera lady and get this going. Okay, are we good? Mm-hmm. All right. So these are the ingredients for our gazpacho. Tomatoes, these are in season right now. I'm going to talk as I prep. And the only thing I'm doing, guys, is these tomatoes, I want to cut the cores out of the top. So what I do, I always use a serrated knife for tomatoes. I talked about this in one of the first sessions I did for cooking. But with tomatoes, they can really, it's hard to cut unless you have a really sharp knife. This is like a $5 serrated knife. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the cores out of these tomatoes. So I kind of go in at an angle and cut the core out. So yeah, so I'm going to do that as I talk. This is a wonderful, wonderful dish. You don't have to cook anything. You just get everything ready and you put it into a blender. Some recipes and places, if you look this up, or people, if you really want to be pure, they tell you to boil water and dunk the tomatoes in boiling water and then take them out and then take the skins off. And you can do that. That's definitely like a little more professional way to do it. I'm kind of doing the more home cooked version. So I'm not peeling the tomatoes. What it does mean is at the end, there is some like tomato skin in there. And I don't mind that as much. And there's also a way to deal with that later too. So I've got my trusty blender. I'm literally just going to, oh no, I've got a few more tomatoes here still. So, so as I was saying, this dish, you can have a lot of different versions. There's a watermelon gazpacho you could make, where you could make watermelon the main ingredient. Tomato is the traditional one. You can make it with melon. You could make it with a bunch of things, very few things. Again, I'm kind of keeping it kind of traditional to like what they would do in Spain, especially in like southern Spain. So I'm just cutting my tomatoes into slightly smaller chunks, but that's it. I don't need to do much. And And we're just gonna blend everything up. And this is like such a tasty thing. And like I said, if you've ever had this yourself, you can probably attest to how wonderful it is, especially if you're outside, if you're on a hot day, if you're at a party or a gathering, and you want like a real winner, this is the dish to make. So I'm actually going to start. I'm going to hold off on this last tomato because I feel like I have quite a bit. Then I've got a big cucumber. Whoops. I've got a big cucumber. I peeled it and I'm just using half of it. So this guy, I'm gonna bring I've got a couple more tomatoes here. So I cut those up ahead of time. So I'm gonna put those in. And tomatoes, cucumber, they're mostly water. So you'll see this will actually turn very liquidy. I might need to add water, but that's about it. So I'm just going to cut this into slightly smaller chunks. And then I've got half of a bell pepper. Same thing, just smaller chunks. And throw that in. And then an important ingredient in this is raw garlic. If you're like a really, really averse to raw garlic, then obviously you can limit or cut it out completely, but it really adds a nice punch. So I'm gonna add like 3 or 4 small cloves of raw garlic and more of these peppers. That was half of a bell pepper. So half a bell pepper, half of a cucumber, a large one, or you could use a full small one. And this is just fresh basil. Fresh basil that I have a bunch growing in my garden actually right now. It's so awesome and fragrant. So you don't want the stems with basil, you just want the leaves. So I'm just picking those off, putting those in, and a few more of these. So yeah, what else can I tell you about this dish? Yeah, this is, I've had this at like a fancy restaurant a couple times. Not that I've been to too many fancy restaurants, but a couple times they'll give you like a shot of it or something. It's so refreshing. And again, in Spain, you'll see this a million different ways. Sometimes they'll put bread into the soup, actually like old bread, and grind it up with everything else. And an important component of this is something I've talked about in other shows that we've done, which is acid. You really need a little bit of acid to brighten everything up. So even though tomatoes are acidic, this dish really is begging for a little bit of acidity to like kind of wake everything up. And if you get it right and you get the proportions down, and it's really easy, you can kind of just play with it with any of these things with the blender. You just kind of play around and like I've done in the past, you blend it, you taste it, you see how it goes. Okay, so I've got my veggies in here. I've just got some red wine vinegar. I'm going to put about a tablespoon of red wine vinegar in here. This is the acid I was talking about. And then I've got my salt and pepper, a little pinch of black pepper. I'm going to move this out of the way. And some salt. I do need a little bit of salt. Don't kill me, Shelly, because the salt really brings out the flavor in the tomatoes. But and then that's most everything. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to this right now, but it's also really good to add it at the end. So that's about a tablespoon of olive oil. And that's it. I'm going to bring this to the blender and run it. So sorry for the noise for 1 minute. Bear with me. It shouldn't take long. Okay. Here we go. All right, time to taste. How easy was that? No cooking involved. So you see it's nice and liquidy, and that's what we want. You don't want this to be too thick. Actually, the skins have blended in quite well, but oh man, That's so good. That's like pretty perfect as it is. So this dish is pretty much done. If I were to serve it, I would just put it into a bowl. I would chill this because right now it's at room temperature. It's actually better cold. So I would stick this blender in the fridge. I'm going to do that and chill it. And then when you serve it, you can drizzle a little bit of olive oil on, you can throw a little breadcrumbs or eat it with a piece of bread. Super, super tasty. Gazpacho, Spanish ARASH style, done. One dish just like that. So we've got this done. I'm going to put this over here. And I'm going to check on my eggplant. And they are pretty close, but not quite there yet. So we'll move on to the next dish until those get ready. And, oh, I did want to mention that the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center has provided a couple of adaptive tools. I know some folks have asked about that. And they actually sent a couple of their tools over and just for me to kind of share with you guys in case those of you who might want. And this is one of the things I'll try to show it later when I'm cutting. This is a blade and like you can use as a knife. So if you have maybe not as great hand function, you could grip onto this and you could maybe chop. It's called a rocker blade, so you can kind of rock it back and forth. It's good for like cutting up herbs or something. But yeah, I'm actually going to take one more peek at my eggplant because now I'm thinking that, yeah, I was wrong. I think they're done. So I'm going to take them out. I'll show you as soon as they're out. And we're just going to let them. All right. So come check this out. I want to show you what I'm looking for here. So as you see, I just put the whole eggplants in the oven. I didn't do anything to them. And you see like the skin is still whole there, but the inside is really soft. That's what I want. You see that? And one of these is already kind of oozing out a little bit, and that's okay. So I just want the flesh on the inside. So this is one of those instances. It's a little bit tricky. I'm going to do it right here because it's just more convenient for me, but this is an important step. And I'm going to cut into the eggplant. I'm going to stick my knife in the tip and cut it open lengthwise. And I'm just going to open it up. And all that's doing is I'm cooling off the flesh so that when I'm ready to make my dish in a few minutes, the flesh is nice and cool to handle. And you see how the peel just naturally separates from the flesh. It's super, super easy. This is a great way to use eggplant. Again, I get really, I get bummed when people say they don't like eggplant because I really am a believer that it's just one of those things that maybe you didn't eat a good version of it. Because if I've had a lot of bad eggplant, but if you do it right, it's a wonderful, wonderful vegetable. And the problem is it's kind of like a sponge. It soaks up a lot of oil. So if you just cut up an eggplant raw and you start, throw it in a pan and some olive oil, it's gonna soak up all the oil. And that makes it tricky. So check that out. See, I just cut them open. Again, I had my glove on because I was touching this. Again, if I had more time, I'd take that out, I'd let it cool. But I do want to do this step while the eggplant is hot. If you let it sit, then the skin can actually stick more to the flesh. So by doing it this way, you see again how easily, once I can handle this, once it cools off a little, how easily the flesh separates from the skin. So we're going to leave this alone, turn the oven off.
Hey, Arash, I have a question that's been posed. You mentioned that you're cooking the eggplants at maximum heat, but how many minutes approximately before it gets to that point that you just showed?
Very good question. Thank you for reminding me, and you just reminded me of something else. So with these small eggplant, it only took about 20 minutes. My own oven only gets to about 450. A hotter oven, it might even take less time. These were, as you can see, small ones. But I mentioned I like getting bigger ones because then there's just less to peel. So I usually like to use like 2 big eggplants, kind of this size. And that I would say takes like 25 minutes or so. And you kind of want to turn them a couple times. This is also something you could do on the grill. So I'm keeping with that summer theme. So if you're into grilling, stick the eggplants on the grill whole and cook them that way. That's another way you could do this as well. So yeah,
Let me bring Shelley. Shelley Wood is in this presentation as well, everyone. She is our registered dietitian nutritionist. She did her program on Tuesday night. Shelley, what are some of the sort of the nutritional benefits of eggplant? I mean, ARASH has mentioned a couple of times it's a kind of a misunderstood vegetable. And what can you tell us about that particular vegetable? Shelley? Let me unmute Shelley. Sorry about that.
You're the mute master, Franklin.
That's okay. You had me muted, but I've got some stuff going on in the background here, so I didn't want to interfere. Eggplant is a fantastic source of fiber, vitamin C, a whole range of minerals. It's delicious. I'm loving this presentation right now. I just made baba ganoush. I was so proud of myself.
Yeah, this is a dish that when I make, everyone always asks me if it's baba ganoush, which I understand because that's usually a common association people have with the soft, because you'll see it turns into kind of mushy eggplant dish, but it's very different. Both are yummy. I love baba ganoush. One important difference is that they usually smoke it more, so they would almost char the skin even more, and there's different ways of doing that, but this is a different preparation. So yeah, sorry, go on, Shelley.
I think that's it. I think mainly just the fiber and vitamin C, and I'm actually looking it up because, believe it or not, Franklin, I don't have every single nutrient memorized for every single vegetable. And ARASH is right. Eggplant is not something that I frequent often, but I'm going to now based on what you've said. So okay. That's it. I don't want to hijack your presentation, so keep going.
Not at all, Shelley. You're never hijacking. You're only contributing. Cool. So I'm going to move on to dish number 2 or 3, however you look at it. This next dish is a salad called Fatoush. We're also staying in the Middle East. This is traditionally eaten in Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, all over the Middle East. It's made in a lot of different ways. It's kind of like, you don't need to overcomplicate it. It's basically just a green salad. But this time of year when everything's in season, it's super, super tasty. So, and I'll show you what makes it a little bit special in a moment. So I just have some romaine lettuce. I washed this ahead of time. You always want to wash your lettuce. And I cut it up. And then as you saw, just some more tomatoes, same nice in-season heirloom tomatoes. And again, a little bit more bell pepper. This is traditional. I'm keeping with the tradition. And let me show one more time. I know I've done this 2 or 3 times, but again, I'm always surprised at the weird ways people cut bell peppers. All I did was I cut the end off, not the end with the stem, the end and the bottom. And I cut that off and then I just stand it up, and then makes it really, really easy. I can see exactly where to cut to get a nice straight piece of bell pepper. There's none of the white here, and you don't really waste anything at the top. So please cut your bell peppers like this. It just makes a lot more sense. I see people like cutting them in half and then the seeds go everywhere. So I just want bite-sized pieces. It's really up to you, however you want it. So I'm just kind of doing like bite-sized chunks of bell pepper. Yeah, and this is a fun salad. And the reason I'm doing this is because you'll see there's an ingredient in it at the end that makes it a little bit different from your traditional salad. And I realize I need to go get it from the pantry because I did not do that at a time. I forgot. So I will get that. But it's really, really refreshing. It's really, really nice for a hot day. And it's also a little bit fun if you want to kind of change up your salad game. I know I definitely kind of end up making kind of the same salads all the time. And so it's nice to have something a little bit different. Got a little more cucumber. Again, I peeled it ahead of time. I'll probably end up using the whole thing because I love cucumber, but yeah, simple ingredients, just romaine lettuce, tomato, bell pepper. You could add some onion in if you wanted. I usually do. And then we're going to make a really simple dressing. And it's a really light dressing. Our last show, we talked a lot about sauces and dressings and whatnot. So if you want a little more inspiration for dressings and sauces, check that out. But, okay. we've got that. And then I am going to use just a little bit of fresh parsley. This is parsley that I had washed and ready to go. And I'm just gonna chop a little bit of this up. This is optional, but as you guys know, I like to use herbs a lot in my cooking. And it gives it such a nice flavor to add this in. So I just chopped up a little bit of parsley. In that goes. And we're gonna make the dressing because we're gonna dress this before we add that last ingredient that makes it a little different. So here I've got a bunch of lemon juice. I squeeze these myself and put them in this, but you can just use like lemon juice in the bottle or in the, you know, the little containers or something. Totally fine. If you have fresh lemons, you want to use that. But this is a super easy dressing. I like to do my dressings in a jar. I probably talked about this. So I'm doing a healthy, I don't know, 3 or 4. I kind of just eyeball it, 3 or 4 tablespoons or so, maybe a little more of lemon juice. And then I've got sumac. I think I talked about this last time. Sumac is a Middle Eastern spice. This is optional. If you can't find it, no worries at all. You don't have to put it in, but it's pretty easy to find these days. It's really fragrant. It adds a really nice dimension. So I'm using about a healthy teaspoon or so of sumac. And then fresh garlic also goes well, but I kind of didn't have any more. So I'm just going to use some garlic powder because I like the garlicky flavor. It goes really well with this salad. And then we've just got salt and pepper and olive oil. So really it's just lemon juice, olive oil, salt and pepper. And then the other things, while they give it like a nice dimension, it's totally, if you can't find those, don't worry. Don't worry too much about it. So I'm adding I don't know, 2 or 3 tablespoons of olive oil. You kind of want this dressing to be a little on the tart side because it kind of wakes everything up in this. So I've got my things here in the jar. This is how I make my dressings. Just shake it up. Way easier than whisking or anything like that. And then what I'm going to do, oh, so good. I'm just going to dress this right now, even though I'm not going to, ideally you do this right before you ate, but I want to show you guys how this goes. And I'm going to quickly grab, if Shelly, I don't know if you're there, if you have like 20 seconds to say about any of these ingredients, I have to grab one quick ingredient. If you can, I will be right back.
This is why we're such a great team, volleying back and forth. What I want to say is everybody noticing all the different colors in everything that you've seen so far? I think we pretty much hit the rainbow with every single ingredient you've been talking about. So, and I talk about that all the time. The closer you get to eating like a rainbow of colors, the more nutrients and the more maximized your nutrition is and healthier. So every single color ARASH you hit today.
Look at that, it's so colorful and nice. Okay guys, this is
like all that.
Yeah, and this is such a fun salad, and this is what makes it really fun. So traditionally, this is made with pita bread that they cut up into pieces and they fry up. So think of like tortilla chips. What are tortilla chips? They're just tortillas, corn tortillas or flour tortillas cut up and fried. And traditionally it's made with pieces of pita bread in there, and it's so good. There's like a crunchiness. I really love it, but I don't have it in me to fry pita bread. It's also kind of not the healthiest thing. So this is a secret ingredient. If you have a Trader Joe's, multi-grain pita chips. These are pretty mild in terms of not too many bad ingredients. The nutrients and stuff it's not too salty at all, not many calories. It's just kind of pita chips you would use for snacking. But I put them into the salad. And what the best thing to do is to toss the salad first and then put the pita chips on top. I use about, like, for a salad this size, this is a big salad, I'd probably use like 3/4 of a cup of pita chips, but you can just eyeball it. And it's so good. The reason you don't do it before you dress it is that then the dressing could make the pita chips soggy. So it kind of defeats the purpose of having this nice crunchy thing that's like ready to go. And they have a few different kinds of Trader Joe's. I got the kind with sesame seeds, so kind of sticking with that theme, and it's so good. So I'm going to
Trader Joe's. I'm going to chime in real quick. That Stacy's makes an unsalted or a low salt version too. Like you can buy them at other grocery stores. Pita chips are getting a little more common, but those are really good. I like the sesame ones.
Yeah, and I just got them at Trader Joe's. It, of course, doesn't have to be. Thank you, Shell. Always keeping me in check. So this salad is done. I'm gonna toss this later. I don't need to do it now. That's a waste of time. Just gonna toss the salad, add the pita chips at the very end, serve it up, and you've got yourself a super healthy, nice. Oh, I have one last ingredient. This is optional. I just like a little bit of like crunch. So I've got some pumpkin seeds here. Sprinkle some of those on. I'm going to use those for my other salad too, but just thought that would be fun. So yeah, this is Fatoush, spelled Fatouch, or excuse me, SH. So if you want to look it up, again, there's a bazillion different versions out there. People always ask for the recipe. You can go ahead and do that, but this is about as simple as it gets. Remember, the thing that makes this fun is the pita and the lemon juice dressing. So there we go. That is done. I'm going to clean my board real quick and now move on to our eggplant dish. So, like I said, this is the only thing I'm making that involves cooking. So I've got my frying pan here. Guys, this is a winner of a recipe. Everybody who tastes this likes it. So it's such an easy thing to make, and it's really, really simple ingredients. You can make this really however you want. But the main ingredient is the eggplant. So now that these have cooled a little bit, I'm going to show you guys. You see how the flesh just kind of comes off the skin, and you can kind of scrape it out. It's still a little hot, but I have kind of like numb fingers because I probably burned them so many times. So again, ideally you would let these sit for a little bit longer, but look at that one. It just kind of slid right out. And skins are totally edible. You can eat eggplant skins in other recipes. That's totally fine. But in this particular one where you just want like a smooth consistency that, like I said, you eat with bread traditionally, often as an appetizer, you keep the skins out. And this way of kind of cooking the eggplant in the oven. And like I said, you're steaming the flesh. So you see how soft it is. This saves you a lot of oil because eggplants, like I said, are very like spongy. They soak up whatever you give them. So I see recipes for eggplant and they call for like a cup of oil. Like I'm not going to use a cup of oil, excuse me, for any recipe. And it's also like expensive, like olive oil. I like to use, I buy Costco olive oil. It's very good quality, but still a cup of olive oil is not like an inexpensive thing. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. And I use this trick for a lot of other eggplant dishes. If I'm making something like a baba ganoush, I might use the same trick. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is a traditionally Iranian dish. That's my heritage. And it's such a winner. It's so easy. You can make this 2 days, 1 day, 3 days ahead of time and just stick it in your fridge. And then when you're ready to serve, it's ready to go. So I've got my pan on warming up. Now I've got this pile of eggplant. You see that? It's kind of like mushy and good, but I'm still gonna like kind of cut it up a little more. So what I like to do is I kind of like to put it into like a little row, and then I just kind of go through. It's really soft. So all I'm doing is separating it a little bit more. And it's so easy. It's like you don't even really need to do a whole lot. And my pan is getting nice and hot. My olive oil is over here because I used that a moment ago. So I'm going to grab, this is a dish where you do want to use, excuse me, extra virgin olive oil. And like 2 tablespoons. I know it's a little bit more oil than I usually use, but this recipe calls for it. And again, this is something you could use to feed, you know, a handful of people. It's an appetizer. You could eat it as a main course, but now that I've got this going, my oil is nice and hot. I'm going to put the eggplant into the oil. It is going to kind of sizzle, so I want to be careful of that. Eggplant has a lot of water in it, so you want to be mindful. All right, that was pretty smooth. And I've got my spoon here, and I immediately just start kind of breaking it up and mushing it up. You see that? And the eggplant's mostly cooked, so this isn't going to take a very long time, but I still want to bring all the flavors together. So this is really, really easy to make. And this is a dish that also asks for a lot of garlic. So I would say with this amount of eggplant, you need at least 2 or 3, sorry, more than that, like 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. Again, this is to taste. If you're not a very garlicky person, that's fine. But this dish is intended. It's from the north of Iran. Every dish has a lot of garlic. You kind of want that bite. Iranian food is not spicy, but there are dishes like this where you get like a strong flavor. We want that. We like strong flavors. But again, if you're not a huge fan of garlic, or you're worried about your breath or something, use like 2 cloves or something. You know, that's fine. And I just kind of roughly chop it. And the reason I don't put the garlic in first is because I don't want it to burn. So I've got this on medium heat. This is already going pretty good. Now I'm going to add my garlic. Okay. Put that in there. I'm going to mix that in. Oh man, I wish you guys could smell this. This is so, so good. And then same thing, I've got tomatoes again. If I make this not in the summertime, I'll use canned tomatoes. That's totally fine. I make it often with that. The best is a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes. You don't want crushed. That's too soupy and saucy. Whole tomatoes are fine too, but if you're using canned, make sure you get the diced, and it's super easy. There's like nothing to do. But I did have fresh tomatoes because again, it was the season. So this is about 3 tomatoes. I already cut them up into kind of big chunks. And I'm basically going to just kind of let that do its thing, but there's no seasoning yet. So I'm going to add 3 spices. You can obviously add more, but these are important spices. These are very, very essential to a lot of Middle Eastern cooking, definitely to Iranian cooking. So I've got cumin, my favorite spice of all time, used all over the world, from Mexico to India to the Middle East, parts of Africa they use it. If you only have a couple of spices in your kitchen, make sure cumin is one of them. I've probably talked about it a lot. The next one is coriander. Coriander is just the seeds of a cilantro plant. In the UK, they call cilantro coriander as well. So same plant, different flavor. This is the spice, not the herb. And then lastly, probably the most important spice in Iranian cooking, and it makes me laugh that it's so trendy right now, is turmeric. And you can tell by this nice bright color because it's all over the place. People are recognizing that it's this super healthy spice, and you can buy it fresh these days too. It's awesome. It's super tasty, but turmeric is pretty essential. And this is a really easy way to integrate it into your diet. And so those are my 3 spices. I added probably about a teaspoon of each. And again, you want flavor in this dish. You want like a nice flavorful thing. You don't want bland eggplant. That's not tasty. And then I just need a little bit of salt and pepper. So I'll grab from over here. As always, a little bit of black pepper, and then a healthy pinch of salt. Again, just to kind of bring the flavor out. And that's basically it for the flavoring of this dish. Again, we're highlighting the garlic. We're highlighting these spices, and we're highlighting that beautiful eggplant that's softened up. And you see how this is getting nice and mushy and just getting into kind of one consistency. And all I'm doing as I'm mixing, and a wooden spoon is the best for this, is just kind of smushing this up. Kind of, it's really easy. If you use canned tomatoes, diced tomatoes are usually peeled. It's super, super easy. This is like a 4-ingredient dish. So it's getting to that nice consistency I want. So I'm gonna kind of let it sit for a couple more minutes. And you see now that turmeric gave it this beautiful color. Tell me if the lights, is that okay? Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that helps. You can kind of see how the spices and the tomato give that nice yellow kind of color. And towards the end, we're gonna add one more ingredient. But while I do that, let me just kind of talk about one of these adaptive tools that I mentioned earlier. Again, the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center has tools like this. They are the ones who provided these to me. They wanted me to share a couple of them with you. If you live in the area, you can check them out. If you don't live in the area, maybe look up and see if there's a independent living center near wherever you live, and they might have something like this. So this is one of the things that I think would be really, really useful. It's hard to see, but it's got like a grippy surface. It's like a cutting board. So it's not necessarily for cutting. It's not the right consistency for that. I wouldn't use my knife on it. But this is really great if you're heating something up and taking something out of the microwave, or your breakfast or something, you're reheating some food, or you got something hot, or if you just want to transport something on your lap and you don't want it to slip off. So here's I'm just using this as an example, this bowl. So the grippiness, this is great. It really doesn't slide off. So if I'm moving around the kitchen, or if I want to bring something to the table, I can use this and its grippy kind of nature for a really great benefit. So this is one of the items that I think a lot of people can use. Protect your lap. Remember, it's really important. As I always tell you guys, I wear an apron. I always protect my lap. And you want to make sure you don't burn yourself or something. That's really, really important if you're doing any of this cooking. So.
And Arash, if I may, everyone, in the email that you're going to get tomorrow morning with the recording of tonight's session, we will include links to where within your communities you could potentially get some of these adaptive equipment that Arash has mentioned. And also, we have one question real quick. What is the name of this dish that you're currently making?
Yes, thank you for your interest. It is a little bit hard to pronounce, but I'll spell it out. It's called Mirza-Hasemi. It's 2 words. So the first word is M-I-R-Z-A, and the second word is G-H-A-S-E-M-I. You could probably, again, Google it. You'll find it. Whatever they tell you to do, you can do that, but you can also do what I'm doing because it's better probably. So just got to put that plug in. But this is getting there. It's almost done. You guys saw how quick that was. So I could leave this as it is. If you want to go full plant-based, you can leave it as it is. It's absolutely delicious. You put it on some bread. Like I said, if you're making a wrap and you want something to like put in your wrap, you can use this. You could eat it with crackers. It's traditionally, like I said, an appetizer. But you want me to turn the light off? It's traditionally eaten as an appetizer, but you can kind of eat it however you want. Sometimes we'll eat this as a main course, and then just with, like tonight, we're just gonna have this with bread and salad on the side, and that's dinner. So, so if you wanted to leave it as is, this could be done. If you want to do kind of finish it off completely, you add a couple of eggs, and I've got 2 eggs in here I cracked ahead of time. So you don't need to like whisk them up ahead of time. You can just throw them in whole. That's the beauty of Iranian cooking. It's very simple. And all I do is I use my spoon or my spatula to kind of break up the yolks and mix the eggs in. So if you're okay eating eggs, I eat eggs very kind of not so often, but this is a dish that I do like it. It adds like a nice creamy layer to it and kind of brings the whole dish together. But again, if you wanted to keep it plant-based, and sometimes I do, I don't add the eggs. But I don't know if you can see, but the texture difference now, it's like really smooth, and the egg's not totally cooked yet, so we'll still give it another minute, but we're getting there. This is look at that, and that's what the egg does. Once you mix it in, it kind of thickens everything and makes it a little heartier, and it's so good. And I'm just stirring this because I don't want it to stick to my pan, but now the egg is pretty much getting cooked.
Arash and Shelley, we have a question. The questioner is asking about the number of calories in a meal like this, that it doesn't strike them as having a whole lot of calories. sort of good or bad, they're saying, if, just to build up their energy reservoir. Is this the kind of dish that, given the content of it, is not likely to have a lot of calories?
So I'll share my quick word on it, and then if Shelly, if you have something to add. I like food. I like to eat a lot of food, but the way I do that without gaining 1,000,000 pounds is by eating. Shelly always talks about this, foods that are not calorie dense. So this does not have a lot of calories in it. Eggplant, tomatoes, garlic, not very much, a couple of eggs, and then really it's the olive oil. But again, like I said, remember what I said, this isn't usually a main dish. We eat this as an appetizer, but you can eat this as your main meal. But if you eat it with bread, to me, it's more than enough calories. If you have like a big, nice slice of bread with some of this on there and like a salad or something else on the side, that's probably fine. Your caloric intake is more of an independent thing, depending on the person. But as I said, think of this not as like, feeding 8 people. This is a dish that 2 or 3 people could enjoy as a small to medium, part of their meal. But you do want to eat, you can eat this plain too, but you do want to kind of eat this with bread. So I turned the heat off, and this is done. This is, if you want to throw in a little bit of like chopped parsley or chopped cilantro before you serve it, you can, but this is totally done. And I could make this ahead of time. I could put this into a container in the fridge. You can eat it cold. You can eat it room temperature. It's good however you eat it. It's such a tasty dish, and it's kind of a showstopper. I know it seems like almost too simple for that, but it really is that awesome. And you see how nice, look at this texture. It's just all creamy now. Everything's kind of melted together so nicely. And that's because of what we did with the eggplant. You can't do this with raw eggplant. If you throw raw eggplant into your pan, you're going to use like a cup of oil and half an hour to get it to this point. So that trick I showed you is absolutely not a trick. It's part of the recipe. So this is done. We got 3 dishes done. I think I can do one more, but if there's any other questions while I'm transitioning, I'm happy to take that.
Yes, there is a question. The questioner says, I noticed that you took the skin off the eggplants. Have you ever tried making this dish with the skin intact? And how does that change the taste?
Very good question. So like I said earlier, there's plenty of dishes where you can keep the eggplant skin on. The thing is, when you cook eggplant to a certain point, the skin will naturally separate. So I've thrown like big chunks of eggplant into like a curry or a stew or something. And if you cook it a really long time, the skin will separate. The skin's totally fine in those dishes. In this particular dish, I don't encourage using the skin, because the skin, especially what I did now, it's like, you can almost like, it's kind of papery. It's not the texture I want. And if I put this with the skin on, it would take away from that really nice, creamy, smooth, delicate, texture that I have. So with this particular dish, don't put the skin on. Do the thing I told you. Stick it whole in the oven. It's super, super easy. Like I said, you can do it on the grill as well. You do want to be careful on the grill, because if the skin gets punctured while it's cooking, a lot of the liquid can like ooze out and make a little bit of a mess. So not as big of a deal when you're doing it in the oven, but you do want to be aware of that you kind of want all that. I'm using the natural moisture of the eggplant. Eggplant has tons of water in it. So I'm using that as a tool. When you're keeping the skin on and you're cooking it in the oven, it's steaming inside itself. And that's why it gets to this really nice, like luscious, soft texture. So if you kept the skin on, or if you cut it open too early, you're going to lose some of that. So that's the important thing. That's probably the most important thing about this dish. Everything else you could do however you want. You could use different spices. You could, like I said, add more garlic, less garlic, skip the eggs, add whatever garnish you want at the end. It's really up to you to take it where you want. But the important thing is to cook the eggplants in the oven until they're soft, until you can touch the skin and it's like giving way. And that means the inside is cooked and you get that really easy separation like I showed you guys a moment ago.
May I chime in real quick?
Please.
On the flip side, in defense of eggplant, since we're defending eggplant so hard today, because so many people don't understand it, if you were to use eggplant for a stir fry or something like that, The trick is to soak it, right, in some kind of salt or like solution like that to draw the water out. What do you do for yours?
So there's a couple of things you can do. Most recipes rightfully tell you if you're cutting up your eggplant to like cut it up and then give it a pinch of salt and let it sit for like 10 or 20 minutes, and that extracts some of the liquid out. So that will help with that. What I like to do, my personal trick, and I can maybe do this in a future cooking session, is I actually kind of steam the eggplant in water, especially if you have a nonstick pan, which I'm trying to use less of, but if you have a nonstick pan, it makes it really easy. So cut up your eggplant into whatever size piece you want, add about an inch of water to your pan, bring that to a boil, throw your eggplant in, put a lid on, cook it in just water for like 5 to 8 minutes until it softens up. And then you get a lot of that moisture out of the eggplant. You would drain that, and then you've got softer pieces of eggplant. If you go too far, then it gets mushy. So you want to be careful. But if you get it just right, you've got nice chunks of eggplant that now have released some of their moisture. They're not as spongy. And then when you stir fry, you're not going to need gallons of oil. So I love eggplant, but if I'm ordering like at a Chinese restaurant or something, I don't usually get it because I know they usually throw it into a huge vat of oil. It can get really oily and heavy. I'm not a huge fan of that. So again, I think that's one of the reasons that maybe people don't like eggplant, because like a lot of traditions, they use it just with a ton of oil. So that's what I would do. Do we 5 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, no additional questions at this time. Are
No additional
you?
question? Okay. I have one more. This is, again, I always set an ambitious agenda. So I'm going to just kind of work on one last thing. This is a little bit of a bonus, but I think we'll have time. It's really easy. It's just another salad. But I'm going to show you one more thing here for this edition of our show. Turn this off so there's no background noise. And I want to just talk about how fruit can be used in a savory way. So I think something a lot of people don't realize is that fruit doesn't just have to be eaten like, you know, on yogurt or granola or something, or on its own. You can make really great preparations of fruit. And I love using fruit, especially in the summer when the fruit is so fresh. So I'm going to make a melon salad for you guys. This is a green melon. You can use any melon you want. I peeled this ahead of time. I scooped out the seed. So this is just totally ready to go. If you're into the melon baller thing, you can do that too. You can just cut the melon in half with the skin on, scoop out the seeds, and then use your melon baller and put a bunch of balls of melon into a bowl. You can totally do that. But I don't have a melon baller and I've never done that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this melon. So I want to kind of dispel the idea that people think like you can't make fruit into like a savory dish. In the summertime, fruit's also really good on the grill. I really recommend like peaches, nectarines, plums. Those are another thing. Melon's a little tricky on the grill because it's got so much water in it. So I don't recommend that. But I'm just cutting this into some bite-sized chunks. And again, there's a million different melon recipes or melon salad recipes. Italy is one of the best places I've seen where they use melon wonderfully in salad. They use it all the time in the summer. You can go to a restaurant in a lot of parts of Italy and it'll be like melon, often with prosciutto or with like a salty cheese. I'm keeping it a little more simple, but it's a really, really great way of enjoying melon. So this is a half a melon. Sorry, guys. I got something in my throat and I can't get it out. So I've got half a melon cut up, putting it right back into my bowl. And because my melon is kind of soft, I want to give it a little texture. So I've got that other half of a cucumber here. And I'm just going to cut it thin. Cucumbers and melons are from the same family, along with pumpkins and zucchini. It's all kind of part of the same family. Some get sweeter and juicier, and some get drier, like a pumpkin or like a squash. They're all part of the same family. But melons are really awesome in the summertime. Melon, like tomatoes, is one of those things I don't eat when it's not summer because a mealy melon that was shipped from halfway around the world just is not appealing to me. So now I've got cucumber in my melon, and then I've got, I want to give it a little more color. So it's kind of looking a little bland. So I've got a little bit of red onion here. I'm just, it's about a quarter, a third of a red onion. I'm just cutting it super thin. You could use bell pepper. I have some bell pepper still from the other stuff. You could add red bell pepper, orange bell pepper, whatever you want. Think of, like Shelly, I like how you bring this up always, but color is such a big part of food. It makes everything taste better when your food is healthier too, but it also just makes it more appealing when you've got different colors. So I've got red onion here, and then I like to always put an herb in something like this. So I've got some cilantro, and this would be a great opportunity. Oh, here it is. So if I were using this knife, it's really dull because that's how it came to me and I didn't have a chance to sharpen it. So I'm not going to use it, but this would be a great use for it. So if I've got my cilantro, I'd wash this ahead of time. You always want to wash your cilantro, and you could kind of chop it like this. And then if you have your leaves and you want to chop them even finer, this is, remember, it's called a rocker knife. So you could kind of go like this. And this is a great tool for mincing something up. Maybe if you're mincing up some garlic, mincing up some herbs like this, chopping anything really fine. This is super, super dull, but if it was sharp, it would do a really good job of this. So I'm gonna stick with my chef's knife and cut up a little bit more. I like a lot of herbs, talked about that many times with you guys. So I'm using a good, healthy, loose half cup or 3/4 of a cup of cilantro. Again, if you don't like cilantro, use basil, use tarragon, use parsley, mint, anything you want. And look at that, it just gives it a little bit of color. And again, because my melon is kind of soft, this is where these pumpkin seeds or slivered almonds, I thought I had slivered almonds, but I didn't. This would be a great use, but I'm gonna add a little bit more of these pumpkin seeds to this. And in an ideal world, I'd probably add something, this is just me being a little picky, something red, just to give it a little more color even. But you see, it's really, really pretty. So we got our melon, we got our cucumber to give it a little crunch. I'm always big on texture, so I want that soft melon to be counteracted by like thin, crunchy red onion, crunchy cucumber, crunchy pumpkin seeds. And if I had, like I said, bell pepper, I could add some of that. Anything you want. But here is a very refreshing summer salad made with melon. And all I'm going to do to dress this is probably just do vinegar, olive oil, salt, and pepper. Like that's it, just a simple dressing. You don't want like a creamy dressing, like anything kind of ranch or Caesar or anything like that. Wouldn't combine really well with like a soft melon like that. You want to think about that. You want something kind of tart. So like a really nice vinegary dressing, a vinaigrette, any kind of vinegar you want. Would go really well. A little bit of mustard. I might throw a little mustard because again, give it that little kick to kind of wake everything up. So here's dish number 4. So here we go. We did it, guys. 1 hour. We got 4 dishes. We got our gazpacho ready to go. We got our mirzah hasemi, our eggplant dish. We've got our fatoush, our lovely Middle Eastern chopped up salad with the pita chips, my favorite cheat. And then lastly, this melon salad. If you wanted to do a little goat cheese in here, if you want to go nuts and do a little feta, if you are eating prosciutto or something, you could. Again, go careful on that because it adds up. But it is so good. This is just such a great way to enjoy summer's bounty on a hot day, or just however you want to eat it. It's so enjoyable. So that's pretty much it. I got all this done. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
All right, there are a couple of questions. Boy, those eggplants have a lot of fans. So one question is there any use for those eggplant skins in that tray that you have?
No.
No.
Short answer.
All right.
Not in this case.
Next question. What is the approximate cost per each one of the sort of meals that you just prepared?
Very, very little. Shelly and I always emphasize cost. I do too. I can give you like a quick estimate in my head, but I got those eggplants from the farmer's market. I think it was $2 or $3 for all those 4 eggplant. So do the math, you know, I got 3 or 4 tomatoes, maybe $1 worth of tomatoes. So if you think $3, $4, 2 eggs is, I don't know, a dozen eggs, you know, so do the math there, you know, 50 cents, 40 cents, something like, we're talking about $5 for that eggplant dish. The salads, nothing really expensive there, guys. It's just really lettuce, tomato, onion, you know, cucumber, very inexpensive ingredients. Those pita chips save you a lot of time, and that's like $2 or $3 for the whole bag, and you're not using the entire bag. So all the food I make is always very, very cost conscious. I'm not using expensive ingredients. I'm not using esoteric ingredients that you need to really go and hunt down and use. So the answer is very, very little.
Wonderful. Next question. Everything that you prepared tonight, how would you make them outdoors next to a barbecue?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the thing with outdoor cooking, and I'm really glad whoever brought that up, is that the biggest thing you can do to help yourself if you're cooking outdoors is to prep as much as you can ahead of time. So all of the washing and like I had to peel those melons, and all those peels, they take up a lot of room. They filled up my whole compost bin. If you're doing that outside, and then you got to like throw it in the, you know, compost or in the garbage, and then you've got just a lot of stuff. So prep as much as you can ahead of time. As I said, the eggplant you can cook on the grill. I didn't do anything to the eggplant. You just stick them whole. But everything else, you know, wash your lettuce, wash your herbs, wash your veggies, have that all ready to go. Have your bowls and your whatever you're going to put everything into, have that out there. So when you're out there, if you're drinking a beer or hanging out with friends or doing whatever you're doing outside, you can kind of do what you're doing. You don't need to keep running inside and grabbing everything. So prepping is your friend whenever you're cooking outdoors, and especially the things that you need a kitchen for, like a running water. So make sure you do all your washing and prep ahead of time, and anything else like that. Make sure you have your utensils, your knife, all that stuff. And then you can just hang out and relax and enjoy being outside and cooking at the same time.
All right. Shelley, can you chime in with any thoughts about the fiber sort of makeup or portion of some of the meals that ARASH made? We always talk about the importance of, you know, consuming meals that have a healthy amount of fiber in them.
Plants equal fiber. And each plant that you eat will have either primarily soluble or insoluble fiber. And I do talk a lot about fiber, and soluble fiber being the kind of fiber that gels up and creates bulk, so that way you can easily eliminate that. Insoluble fiber is kind of like a little Brillo pad that scrubs its way down and kind of cleans you out. So you need both. And so the variety of fiber in all of the things that ARASH made tonight is probably a great mix of both insoluble and soluble. And when we talk about getting a big, huge variety, like we always do, you're giving yourself a wide variety of fiber, and more variety in fiber means better bowel program. So keep the variety, look for the color. If you're getting different colors, like a wide variety of colors, you're getting a wide variety of fiber automatically.
Very good. Alrighty, that's all the questions that we have. ARASH, that was a beautiful presentation, like Shelley said,
Beautiful.
with all the colors that you incorporated. Not only healthy dishes, but very pretty dishes as well. So thank you for doing that. Okay, everyone, as I mentioned, we have been recording this presentation. So tomorrow morning in your inboxes, there will be a link to the video recording, and also we will have the links to the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, as well as a couple of links to other independent living centers in California, and then even broader throughout the country that you could contact to see what their sort of adaptive tool program is like. A lot of them have these kind of basically trials that you could check out some of these tools for upwards of 2 to 4 weeks before you decide if you want to buy anything like that. So we'll have those links included as well. Once again, thank you, ARASH, and thank you to your beautiful wife for being our camera woman. She's becoming a pro at this. So thank you to both of you. And thanks, Shelley, for coming in. And
thank you, Shelley.
Nice to see you. I couldn't resist.
Very good.
I know. I miss our co sessions.
Excellent. let's put a plug. We're doing it next month, so
Next
Okay,
month.
done.
I already have ideas.
Very
Perfect.
good. All right, everyone. Thank you again, Arash. Have a good night and have a good weekend, everyone. Look for that email from us first thing tomorrow morning. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Get
All
out there, get some of this good summer stuff. Enjoy it. Enjoy these colors. This stuff is in season not for that long. So buy those tomatoes, buy those eggplants, and enjoy it now. A tomato now is a million times better than in January or February when it's coming from God knows where. So get out there and enjoy this stuff now. Don't wait.
Yeah, I think everyone on this call wishes that they could be at your house right now. So
We'll have to do one of these in person once
There you
things
go.
are safer again, frankly.
indeed,
Yes.
indeed,
That's the
we will.
reality.
All right. Have
Thank
a good
you.
night. Thank you again, Arash. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.